So today we did this design where we looked upon how to create storyboards, how to animate buttons, and this is the final animation that we got. So when we click on this button, it enlarges and gives this information, and then we click on the next button, it closes. So let's first start by creating this new project. Let's select WPF app with .NET Framework. Click on next. Make sure you have opened Visual Studio for Blend and not Visual Studio 2022. Let's give this project a name and click on create. For those who haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel. It means a lot and it motivates me to create more such videos. So moving ahead, now that our window is loaded, let's select this window. I've accidentally added a column definition. Let me remove this. Let's select the window and go to the properties panel, allow transparency and make the window style to none, and change the window startup location to center screen and change the resize to no resize. Now that we have done this, let's change the width to say 400 and height to 550. I think that is good enough. Let me run this application and see it in action before we move on and add elements on top of the grid. So this is the perfect size. So let's stop this application and let's start by designing the elements. So inside this grid, I will go ahead and add a rectangle. Before that, let me select the window and change the background color to a slight shade of gray. And then inside this grid, I will add a rectangle. Let me add a rectangle here. Let me remove the stroke and change the fill to white. Next, let me add a rectangle inside this, not a rectangle, image inside this grid. So to add an image, I will use the ellipse. Let me position it on the center. Let's change the stroke to none, fill to an image that I have downloaded. And let me select this. And that is done. Now, next, I will go ahead and add some text blocks. This would be my first text block. Let me go ahead and change text. Let me change the text properties, align it to center, go to text size and change it to say 36 or something. It's too big, so let's make it 24. Looks good. And let me copy this content and change the text to Germany. I also decrease the size of this text to 16, and then I will add some buttons. So let me go ahead and add them here. I'm holding on to the shift key to draw a perfect square button. Let me select this, go to the background and change it to an image instead of a simple color. Let me also remove the content that it has and also remove the border. Let me copy this and paste one more time and then change the image source. So we have our buttons ready. And one last thing is to add a rectangle here. I think this would be the perfect size. Let me change it to a rounded rectangle or be basically an ellipse. I've changed the rectangle to an ellipse and you'll soon find out why. Let me remove the stroke and change the fill yeah, that would be perfect. And then I will add a button on top of it. So let me change the width and height of this button to say 30 points. I think it could go a bit bigger, so let me do just that and align it to the rectangle, so the rectangle that I have, which is basically a ellipse now. I'll remove the border brush change the background to an image and remove the content. Now I have my button ready. Let me change the angle. Yes, so this is my button. So this is our start screen. So let me select all of this content starting from the rectangle to this and group it into a grid and rename it as start. Let's select the rectangle, sorry, the grid, and start adding the end elements. So let me hide this here and select the grid and start adding the end elements. So to do that, I will add a rectangle here. This would be my rectangle. I will remove the stroke, change the fill to the same color as the button that we have added, and let me add another rectangle. Let me just copy this and paste. And to paste it, I am holding on to the Alt key and dragging it with the mouse. Simple. And let's change the fill to say white. That is done. Now I will add a button here. Instead of button, I will go ahead and add a rectangle. And you'll soon find out why I have chosen a rectangle instead of a button. And on top of this button, I will add on top of this rectangle, I will add a button. Now, uh, now that the button and the rectangle are of the same size, let me go ahead and change the fill of this rectangle. Okay, so let me remove the stroke. And now let's select and place this button on top of this rectangle and remove the background and the border brush and change the foreground to say white. Go to the text properties, change the text size to say 20 and change it to bold and change the text to send. Simple. So this, and there is one more element that is missing, and let me add it right away. So I will add a rectangle here on top. Let me decrease the size of this rectangle a bit. Remove the stroke again. Go to the fill, image, browse, and this is my image that I want to show. So our end screen is also ready. Now let me select all these elements and group it into a grid and rename it as end. Uh, Let me make this visible. And to start with our animation, I want all these elements to be in the desired location. So this is the end screen, but to reach this end screen, I want to make some changes. So this should be hidden and you will soon know why. So I will hide this first. I will also hide the button and the rectangle. And the starting position of this rectangle would be somewhere here, and this rectangle would be somewhere here. And now I will hide both the rectangles and the bottom rectangle. So this is our start position. So let's go ahead and start our storyboard. So to add a storyboard, let's go here and click on storyboard and click OK. So on the first keyframe, as when I click on this button, I want this rectangle to the ellipse to become a rectangle and consume this whole space on top and hide all these elements below. So let's select the rectangle, hide it on the first keyframe, select the ellipse, hide it on the first keyframe, select the text blocks that I have and the buttons, hide it on the first keyframe, select the rectangle that I have and the button. So the button I want to hide on the first keyframe, but the rectangle on the first keyframe, let's add an empty keyframe here without any changes, but on the 0.5 keyframe, I want it to slowly increase and go to the point here. So I want this to change into a rectangle, back to a rectangle, and also slowly increase its size and fill the rectangle here. Move up. So when I run this, you can see that we have our animation ready. On the next part is to move back and concentrate on the next part, that is the end screen. So add a keyframe for all these elements, an empty keyframe, and on the 0.5 keyframe I will make this rectangle visible, this another rectangle also visible, which is this. And instead of making this visible, now that I've made it visible, I will move this keyframe here. So you can see as this is growing, I will also change this size of this rectangle, and I will change it to fill it completely till here. So when I run this, so you see I've achieved the desired look. Now next is the rectangle below here. So I will make that visible as well. I will make the button visible as well. The rectangle on top, which is the icon here, visible as well. So this is the animation that I want. And now this is the first animation. So let me stop the storyboard, close this, and let's start with the next storyboard. So for our next storyboard, we should start by adding a storyboard here. Now we start from where our first storyboard ended. So our first storyboard, on the first keyframe, let's hide the ellipse. Let's hide the text blocks and the buttons. Let's also hide this button. Let's increase the size of this rectangle. This was it. And then the first rectangle, I want it to be hidden. And let's start with the next one. So these were all visible, so let's make this visible. Then the next rectangle also to be visible, and it was not just visible but it was all enlarged till here. And the next rectangle also was visible, the button was also visible, and the last item was also visible. So this was the end of the first storyboard. So we have started from there, and now we will move to the 0.5 keyframe where I want all of this to be hidden. And this, on click of this button, I want this background rectangle to enlarge. So on the 0.5 keyframe, I want all of these which are already hidden. So I don't want to do any changes to this, but I'll just add a keyframe on the 0.5, and I will move to these ones where I will hide this first one. The second one will stay. Well, before that, let's go to the last one. We'll hide this. Let's select the second one and increase its size to completely fill the box. And then the rectangle below, before that I will hide this button, and the rectangle will increase its size. I don't know why my machine is acting a bit strange, but all I want to do is achieve this. It is a bit out of bounds, but when you run the application you won't see it. So okay, so this is what we want. So let me close this storyboard and quickly jump back to the first storyboard. I have to make some minor adjustments. So when you see this, it is a bit slow. So let me select these anchor points or keyframes and move it to say zero point 0.3 second. And when you run this, so it is a bit fast. And let's do the same to the second storyboard. Let's select all of these and move it zero point 0.3. Okay, so our animations are ready. So all you have to do is now next make some changes. We all know that we are not seeing the triggers panel here anymore, and I am working on how to add them. But meanwhile, there is a workaround, and that is through the code behind. So to trigger our storyboards, we will need this code snippet. I have explained this in my previous video. So let me minimize these panels, and in between these, I will add this code snippet. But before that, let me identify the buttons that I have and the ones that will trigger the animation. So the first button is this button, and that is called button 2, and the next one is button 3. So let's go here, go back to this grid, hide this, and here let's add this. I have added a Windows trigger element, and under that we have event triggers. And let's change this button source to button 2, which will basically trigger the storyboard 1. Here begin storyboard, and then the second one will be the button. I pasted wrong code. Okay, so this will be button 3, and then it's done. We'll have to save this. Let's run this application and see this in action. One last thing that we need to do is so let's go to the Windows resource of this button. Let me select this, right click, edit a template. Okay, so I think this button, let's right click, edit template, edit a copy, and create a button style. And now here we have our button. So it has some triggers on mouse over. So I will go and comment this part out, and let's see what happens. So on mouse over, we do not see anything, but when we press, it changes, it highlights. So similarly, you can do this to the other triggers. But let me run this once again and show you this nice looking animation in action. So today we did this design where we looked upon how to create storyboards, how to animate buttons, and this is the final animation that we got. So when we click on this button, it enlarges and gives this information, and then we click on the next button, it closes. So hope you all liked watching this video. If you do, please give this video a thumbs up, like, share and subscribe to my channel. Till then, bye bye.